My daughter came home crying. Grandpa called me trash and pulled me away from the photo. I went straight to the family estate, showed them who really owned it, and said, "Get out." I was in the kitchen when the front door opened. My daughter dropped her backpack beside the couch, walked straight past me, and went upstairs. "Olivia?" She stopped halfway up the stairs. I had never seen her face like that. Her eyes were red, her cheeks were wet, and she was gripping the sleeve of her sweatshirt with both hands. "Grandpa called me trash," she said. I froze. "What?" He said I was trash and that I didn't belong in the family picture. I put down the glass I was holding. "What happened?" Olivia wiped her face with her sleeve. "We went to Grandpa's house for the family dinner. Everyone was taking pictures in the living room. I stood next to Mom, and Grandpa came over. He grabbed my arm and pulled me away. She looked down. He told me to go sit somewhere else because the picture was for real family. I stared at her for a few seconds. Did anybody say anything? Mom told him to stop. "And your aunt?" "She just kept taking pictures. That was enough." I grabbed my keys. Olivia looked at me. "Dad, where are you going?" "I need to talk to Grandpa. Please don't make it worse." I walked back to the kitchen and picked up my phone. There was one thing my family seemed to have forgotten. My grandfather had left the family estate to me, not to my father, not to my uncle. Me. It had happened 3 years earlier after Grandpa had a serious health scare. He had called me to his house and told me he wanted everything handled properly while he was still capable of making decisions. The estate included the main house, a detached guest house, and the land around it. At the time, Dad had been furious. He told me Grandpa was confused. My uncle said I was being selfish. I didn't argue with anyone. The attorney handled everything legally, and the deed was transferred into my name. But I had never thrown that fact in their faces. In fact, I let my parents keep using the estate for family gatherings because Dad had lived there for years, and I didn't want to turn an inheritance into a war. Apparently, they had mistaken my silence for permission. I drove there that evening. When I pulled into the driveway, Dad's truck was parked beside the garage. My uncle's SUV was there too. Through the windows, I could see everyone gathered around the dining table. I walked inside without knocking. The room went quiet. Dad looked up. "What are you doing here?" I looked around. Mom was sitting beside him. My uncle was holding a beer. Grandpa was at the end of the table. I put my keys on the counter. "I'm here because Olivia came home crying." Grandpa sighed. "Oh, for God's sake." I looked directly at him. "You called my daughter trash. I told her she didn't belong in that picture. You grabbed her. She was standing where she wasn't supposed to be." Dad leaned back. "She'll get over it." I looked at him. "No, she won't." Nobody spoke. I pulled a folder from my bag and placed it on the table. Dad stared at it. "What is that?" "The deed." My uncle laughed. "Come on." I opened the folder and slid the document across the table. "This property belongs to me." Dad's smile disappeared. Grandpa looked at the papers without touching them. "You wouldn't dare." I picked up my phone and called the property attorney who had handled the transfer. He answered immediately. I put him on speaker. "I'm at the estate," I said. "I'm formally ending my family's permission to use the property." There was a pause. "Understood," he said. Dad stood up. "You're kicking your own family out?" I looked at him. "You've been treating my daughter like she isn't family." Mom started crying. "Please don't do this." I looked at her. "I gave you 3 years." Dad pointed toward the door. "This is still your grandfather's house." I picked up the deed. "No, that's the part you never bothered to understand." Grandpa finally spoke. "You think owning this place makes you important?" I folded the papers. "No." I looked around the table. "Being able to protect my daughter does." Nobody answered. I walked to the front door and opened it. Dad stared at me. "You're serious?" I stepped aside. "Get out." My uncle muttered something under his breath, but he stood. Mom followed him. Dad remained seated for another few seconds. Then he looked at Grandpa. Grandpa looked away. That was when Dad finally stood. They left without another word. The next morning, I had the locks changed. The family group chat exploded. People called me cruel, selfish, ungrateful. I didn't respond. 2 days later, Olivia and I went back to the estate. She stood in the living room, looking at the empty wall where everyone had taken family pictures. "Are they mad at you?" "Probably." She nodded. Then she looked at the wall. "Can we take our own picture?" I smiled. "Yeah." She stood beside me. I set the timer on my phone. For the first time, nobody pulled her away. And when the camera flashed, the house was completely silent.